Well, hey folks, welcome to Profiling Evil. In this gripping episode where we go behind the headlines of a shocking Utah murder case involving Kathryn Restelli, who's now pled guilty to conspiring in the murder of her husband, Matthew Restelli. Now her mother, Tracy Grist, and her brother, Kevin Ellis, remain behind bars awaiting trial for the same murder. Prosecutors say the trio tracked Matthew from California using an AirTag, and they staged a deadly ambush with their children in the next room. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to show you some actual footage from Restelli pleading guilty in the court. I've enhanced the audio and the video to help you hear every word a little more clearly. That way you can better understand how this web of deceit unraveled. Well, hey folks, welcome back, and today we're going to dive into this tragic case that's as chilling as it is calculating. It's about a woman who didn't just want out of her marriage, she wanted her husband dead. And with the help of her own mother and her own brother, she allegedly made sure that happened. And now she's pled guilty. So we're going to unpack exactly how law enforcement caught on to this scheme. And you can also catch my interview with Chris Stewart from Law and Crime News for more information, a deeper dive, and a whole lot more content. But here, this is something you're not going to want to miss, because I've got the video from when Restelli entered her guilty plea. That way, you can step into the courtroom. And I've tried to enhance it for clarity. But to give you some overview of this thing, it was just about 10 p.m. on July 12th when the American Fork, Utah Police Department responded to a 911 call in a quiet little neighborhood. Inside the home, they found a dead 42-year-old Matthew Restelli, shot multiple times by a gun. His wife, Kathryn Restelli, her brother Kevin Ellis, and her mother Tracy Grist were all present, along with the couple's two young children. But what seemed at first like a tragic domestic dispute quickly unraveled into something far more calculated. Matthew and Kathryn had been living in California and were reportedly going through a rocky patch in their marriage. Maybe the entire marriage, maybe the entire experience was rocky. I just don't know for sure. But Kathryn had taken the kids and gone to stay with her mother in Utah. When Matthew decided to come out to Utah in hopes of reconciling, or at least kind of discussing what the future would look like, he had no idea that he was being tracked with an Apple AirTag on his vehicle. Police would later discover the tracking device stashed in cluttered passenger side compartment areas hidden beneath paper, snacks, and debris. Now, authorities are believing that this was a cold-blooded murder plot orchestrated by Kathryn and her mother, Tracy, and her brother, Kevin. He was the shooter. And their motive? Police say Kathryn wanted a divorce, but she feared that a long court battle would also result in her losing custody of her kids under California law, because she didn't want to stay in California and he did. And you can't separate the kids from their father. So instead of letting the legal process play out, the trio allegedly decided to lure Matthew to Utah so that they could kill him. There were text messages amongst the murderous trio that showed that just minutes before the murder occurred, Kathryn sent Kevin a chilling reminder saying, "Keep an eye on Find My." Well, 10 minutes later, shots rang out. Kevin claimed it was self-defense, saying Matthew had a knife, but police weren't buying it. A crime scene photo taken before medical help arrived showed that Matthew was laying face down with the knife suspiciously in his hand, likely placed there post-mortem. The knife, it turns out, was from a tactical gear company, and investigators traced it to a subscription box tied to the deceased man, but it was one that Tracy had apparently tried to cancel. The dots were starting to connect. Tracy had been in California helping with some estate planning, and she could have easily brought that knife back to Utah. But the real kicker here is the knife was placed in the victim's right hand. This guy was left-handed, and more importantly, the autopsy revealed that the victim had a bullet hole through the wrist of his right hand, actually this hand, making the idea that he was holding a knife unbelievable. Again, he was left-handed, holding it in the right hand. Well, let's listen to part of my conversation with Chris Stewart of Law and Crime, where we talk about this chilling case and the chilling details. The planted knife may seem like a clever cover-up to the conspirators, but I think it ended up becoming one of the biggest red flags of the case.
Joining us now to talk about this is retired police commander and the host of Profiling Evil, Mike King. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know that you followed this story out where you live in Utah. Let's get to the big kind of bombshell twist in all of this. The knife goes into the wrong hands, and that seemed to be a major red flag for law enforcement. What do you make, before we get into the plea deals and all of that, that being kind of the twist that appears to have really blown up this plan that this family had?
Boy, I'm with you, Chris, and I think that's really an interesting thing that probably wasn't an aha moment at the crime scene, because obviously these police officers wouldn't know whether Restelli is left-handed or right-handed. But the thing that is so interesting is the amount of staging that we're now learning went in this case. And the fact that we see what probably was part of this whole fantasy process that now we know Kathryn Restelli has pled guilty to. We still have to, by all rights, that allegedly mom and brother are involved in this murder, and we see that they're awaiting trial. But think about the amount of fantasy that went into planning this thing, to think about, how am I going to stage not only the crime scene, I'm going to, by the way, take some effort or put some effort into play to cover the couch, to move toys, to do other things to kind of establish a crime scene that can stay somewhat pristine and yet really get across the point that this guy broke into our house and we're defending our domain. But then at the conclusion of that, to place the knife in his right hand, and that became incredibly critical. Well, as detectives dug deeper, the evidence began to mount. Kathryn had joked to a friend in May, saying, quote, "I just might murder Matt today," close quote. Well, on the day of the murder, she actually posted this, quote, "I have to do big girl things this morning. Wish me luck," close quote. The day after the shooting, she reportedly told us, that same friend, that she was happy that Matthew was dead, before showing online acquaintances where his body had fallen, the outline on the floor and the blood and other kinds of things. I mean, really kind of gruesome stuff. Now, searches on Tracy's phone painted an equally disturbing picture. She'd been Googling Utah gun laws, how to file for divorce across state lines, and what would happen if a parent takes children without the other parent's consent. Even more alarming were the connections to another high-profile family murder case, that of Donna Adelson, and the murder of her son-in-law, Dan Markle. You'll remember that case. We talked about it in a lot of times on Court TV. I did some videos here on Profiling Evil, and you can go back and watch some of those. But keep in mind that Donna Adelson's case, her murder trial, is still upcoming. But here's the thing. Tracy had researched the case extensively in the weeks leading up to Matthew's death. Now, despite Kevin's self-defense claim, investigators saw through the facade. There was a digital trail from texts to GPS pings, and they all told a story of premeditation. And this is going to be tough for them with their trials coming up, because Kathryn and Tracy helped lure Matthew into the house. They helped track him, and police believe they helped cover up all of the evidence after the fact. But now, Kevin Ellis, he's also behind bars facing murder and weapons charges. Kathryn Restelli, she pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. And her mother, Tracy Grist, awaits trial on her charges of murder, her charges of obstruction of justice and domestic violence in the presence of children. And those children caught in the crossfire of all this adult manipulation, well, thankfully, they've been placed in protective custody, but I'm sure their life is turned upside down. This case has layers of deception, digital stalking, weaponized family dynamics, and it is a dark example of how it all came together. Frankly, it's a textbook example of the kind of predatory behaviors I write about in my book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. Wolves is a textbook example of manipulative, controlling behavior that can be fueled by fantasy, and this story fits the bill. The coordinated planning, the digital surveillance, the use of the children as pawns, it's all there. In fact, in one chapter, I talk about how predators normalize control through routine surveillance. Another chapter digs into family-based conspiracies that can escalate from control into calculated violence, and how the red flags that often go unnoticed can be recognized. In this case, it was too late. Well, I talked with Chris Stewart about the pre-planning and the fantasy-driven behavior behind this conspiracy. So this next clip we're going to look at highlights just how the family orchestrated this murder. And it talks about how things like the smallest technical breadcrumbs, things like AirTags, can become linchpins in solving a case. Let's watch that together.
How does a plea deal for Kathryn, who's admitting and laying out in the plea agreement all these things that we're talking about, the circumstances, the staging, the luring of Matthew Restelli to Utah, how does that now impact their cases if they're trying to fight these charges?
Holy cow, I think this isn't a shot over a bow. This is a torpedo right through the side of their ship, because now if the prosecution can get her in to testify and not be, I mean, they could compel her to come in and testify, but she could then be just a terrible witness. But it might open the door for them to then introduce that she's actually pled guilty to this murder and pled a part of this murder. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. Number one, we didn't hear a word in that plea hearing that she has agreed to testify. I mean, we're seeing that in other criminal cases that are out right now, where somebody is saying, "Hey, I will testify against my co-conspirators." But she clearly was the first one to the candy counter, and she made a deal that is reducing her longevity in prison, maybe a little, but she's accepting responsibility for this. And she's saying, I did it in concert with my mother and my brother, which if they can get her on the stand, that is going to be a major hill to overcome.
Right. And even if Tracy's defense, Kevin's defense, they could argue, hey, we were doing this for her. If she's now admitting to all of this, that, to your point, I mean, it just really sinks the ship for the boat reference. Even though, say if they argue that the domestic violence or whatever the marriage was, it was so dangerous that she needed to get out of it, to have a case where you have a mom, a son, and a sister, a daughter, all being on the same page, allegedly, to move forward with a murder. I mean, how often have you seen that in your career, to have, I mean, all three, even if they were all concerned and that's their argument, we were concerned, to move forward and everybody say, hey, murder's the way that we're going to have to do this.
I know this has come out because of searches forensically that they recovered from Kathryn's phone, but the Adelson case is a perfect example of another place where this happened, and it becomes like a chicken and an egg almost. Which one was first? Was she and her family hatching this plan, and the Adelsons did this, a year earlier? Or did she read that and see that and think, well, if I tweaked it this way, I could get away with it, because they almost got away with it. And of course, Mrs. Adelson is still presumed innocent, but we have to look at these cases from that perspective of did they copy someone, or were they the originator of this particular idea? But the thing that I keep going back to, Chris, and you and I have talked about it so many times on this case, is the fact that there was pre-planning, premeditation. Nobody is going to be able to escape the fact that there was a decision made to track that AirTag in the vehicle, that there was a decision made to say, come to Utah and drive me home, and let's get the kids back there and let's try to resolve our marriage. There was a concerted effort by someone, and I don't know that it's been proven who yet, that placed a cover over that couch, trying to keep it from getting damaged in the course of this thing. There was a specific effort by someone to have a weapon ready for someone to walk through the door and then execute them. There was a solid plan that said, hey, he's at this location. I'm sending you an image on your phone. Get ready. Continue to watch Find My. All of those things just point to this incredibly tall conspiracy that really matches a few others, but still it is incredibly unique in and of itself.
Yeah, and that's why these cases, I mean, anytime someone loses their life, it's newsworthy because it's a tragedy. But I think this case in particular gets so much attention because you have so many moving parts that seem to come together. And it just always, in these family cases, to have like no one said, I don't think murder would be a good idea here. It was, we're all on the same page. And that's always just something, whenever these cases happen, that just, it kind of blows my mind.
Hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I wanted to take a moment to invite you to join me at CrimeCon Denver. It's in September, and you won't want to miss this. If you love true crime and you love hanging out with people that like true crime, you ought to come and enjoy the 6,000 plus people that come to CrimeCon and take part in this amazing event. And to make it a little easier, I've worked out a deal with CrimeCon to give you a special discount on your registration. So when you go to registration, make sure you enter the code word KING, K-I-N-G, my last name, and that'll get you a discount on CrimeCon. And I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, by the way, bring your books, and I'll make sure to sign them while we're there, and we'll get some pictures together. Hey, we'll see you soon at CrimeCon. Well, if you found that discussion compelling, I really would hope that you would head over to Law and Crime and watch the full interview with Chris Stewart. We covered a whole lot more ground, including the twisted psychology between this case and how plea deals can reshape criminal trials. You'll find the full conversation on their YouTube channel, so just head over there.
Judge Restelli, this is Judge Griffin. Can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Did you read the statement of defendant in support of guilty plea that was prepared for you by your attorney, or did he read it to you?
Both.
All right. Do you have any questions regarding the information, the warnings and rights that are contained in that document?
No, Your Honor.
Did you read carefully the factual basis of the admission of facts to support the elements that was contained in there as well? Did you carefully read through that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Do you have any questions or concerns regarding those facts?
No, Your Honor.
I'll come back in a minute, but let me ask you this just to tee it up. Are any of the facts contained in the admission of facts incorrect, misstated, overstated, or otherwise wrong?
No, they seemed correct. They are correct.
They are correct, or they seem correct?
They are correct.
All right, thank you. I'll rely upon the rights that are contained in the statement in advance of plea. I'm going to go over your rights with you one more time because you are pleading guilty to several felonies. By pleading guilty today, you've already had your preliminary hearing, but by pleading guilty today, you are given up the right to a speedy jury trial of your peers. You're waiving the presumption of innocence, And you're waiving the right to require the state to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You're also giving up the right to call witnesses to come testify on your own behalf, and you're giving up the right to cross-examine any witnesses who may be called to testify against you in any proceedings, including at trial. By pleading guilty today, you're also giving up the right to present evidence through third parties as well, or through experts, to present any type of evidence on your behalf. And with a guilty plea, you're giving up the right against self-incrimination. What we mean by that is when you plead guilty, you've agreed to waive your right to remain silent and testify against yourself. Now, the statement in advance of plea states that you're pleading guilty to 2 second-degree felonies and a first-degree felony. Counts 1 and 3 that you're pleading guilty to, the agreement is they'll run consecutive. Second-degree felony is punishable by 1 to 15 years in prison. First-degree felony, in this case, is punishable by 5 years to life in prison. So rather than consecutive, that means you would serve each one separately, and then after the time it gets served on those, then you would serve the time on the third one. If I ran that consecutive, or if I ran it concurrent, you'd be serving the time on the third one all at the same time. I don't know how I'm going to sentence you on the third count, or count 2, or the third charge. I'll make that decision at the time of sentencing after I've heard from you, your attorney, I've read the pre-sentence report, I've heard from the state and the victim's family, and then I'll make a final decision. I'm just required to let you know that for each second-degree felony, it's punishable by 1 to 15 years, and then for the first degree, it's 5 years to life. I did have a question I neglected to ask counsel in chambers. There is a firearm. Is there a firearm enhancement with a mandatory, like 3 years or something like that? Is that in play, counsel?
I don't believe so. Yeah, that would be my understanding as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss something there. Okay. All right. All right, then you also have the right to be sentenced to not less than 2, not more than 45 days from the date that you plead guilty. The important thing to keep in mind is prior to the time you're sentenced, if you believe it's appropriate, you could ask for permission to file a motion to withdraw your guilty pleas. That motion may or may not be granted. It's fact specific, but it's a right you have until you've been sentenced. Are you under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or medications right now, Ms. Restelli?
No, Your Honor.
You feel like you're thinking clearly?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has anybody tried to force or coerce you into entering into this plea deal or to waive your rights?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Brown, for the record, did you explain to your client her constitutional rights? And do you believe she understands them?
Yes, she does.
And do you also explain to her enhanceability, Second Amendment, immigration consequences as applicable?
As applicable, yes.
And Ms. Restelli, do you wish to waive your rights to proceed forward?
Yes, Your Honor.
And before I do that, just for the record, you did give Mr. Brown permission to sign your name electronically to the statement in advance of plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll find you've only voluntarily intentionally waived your rights. I'll execute the statement in advance of plea now. We talked at the very beginning somewhat of the factual basis for this matter. Mr. Brown, for the record, you went over the mission of facts to support elements contained on pages 2, 3, and 4 of your claim. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you read that to her verbatim?
Yes.
All right. And you told me those omissions of facts to support the elements are correct. Is that true, Ms. Restelli?
Yes.
All right. So was there a stipulation as to how we're going to handle the facts, counsel? I believe we talked about it. Let's have you put it on the record now. Let's have the state do that first.
Well, the state is stipulating that the facts contained in this agreement are great and sufficient to support the pleas on the 3 counts. We agree that if Ms. Restelli is, as she has acknowledged, agreeing that these are the facts, that we don't need to read the entirety of the facts on the audio record because they will be in there written.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, we agree to incorporate them via the plea statement.
All right. I'll set the party stipulation that the statement of facts have been incorporated in it. Do you have any objection to that as well, Ms. Restelli?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then. Then finally, then, the facts that contained in the omission of facts in the statement of advance of plea, are those true and correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll find the factual basis to proceed forward. Then is to count 1, murder, domestic violence, a second-degree felony, punishable by 1 to 15 years in prison. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As it pertains to count 2, conspiracy to commit murder, domestic violence in Utah, second-degree felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
As it pertains to count 3, felony discharge of a firearm, domestic violence, a first-degree felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Thank you. I'll find you've knowingly, voluntarily, intentionally entered the pleas. I will receive the same, and I will dismiss the remaining counts.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And then you formally waive time, correct?
Yes, we'll leave the time, and I'm available on that date, so that'll work.
September 9th at 9:30 work for the state as well?
It does, Judge.
All right, September 9th at 9:30 live. courtroom 2A. So I anticipate there may be several letters that may be filed. Let's make sure they're filed at least a week in advance. And then once your side's letters have been filed, would you email CC the opposing side and let they know that they're there, so I can read them and think about the information contained in them instead of struggling early that morning to catch up with a whole bunch of things. Typically speaking, obviously the defendant has the right to address the court. She may have one or two people she wants to address before. I think the rest should be done through written statements. The state may have a couple of people or may not that want to address the court. That would be appropriate as well. Public balance should be done through written statements as well.
So the court knows we currently plan on flying out the victim's mother and brother.
And they would be
the ones speaking. Yes.
That would be fine. And we have the family members, just have them submit a statement in writing, please. Any objection to that, Mr. Brown?
No, it's fine. The only, I guess, contingency is if we have some people that can't travel, maybe they can appear and maybe WebEx.
Yeah, we can set up the WebEx. Just let us know the day before, or day or two before. We'll make sure WebEx. Well, we'll try and make sure WebEx is right. Anything else we need to put on the record for the defense?
Well, thank you.
Anything from the state?
Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Restelli. I'll see you. Pardon? Oh, yeah, nearly forgot. I do want to PSR, Ms. Restelli, you need to get from the deputies an APMP packet. You need to fill that out completely. If you have any questions regarding any of the information they're requesting from you, don't let it go. Contact Mr. Brad will be happy to help you. If it's not filled out, or if you don't cooperate with APMP and they ask for me to continue sentencing, we'll just have to continue. It'll be another 45 days before we're ready to proceed forward. So it's in your best interest to make sure. Mr. Brown, obviously, very experienced. Reach out to him and he'll be able to help you on any issues you may have.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And please take a moment and check out my new book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. You can get it worldwide on Amazon in paperback, hardbook, ebook, audiobook, all of those formats. And if you live in the United States and you'd like a signed copy, you can just go to profilingevil.com and order it there. I'll sign it and I'll ship it to you for free. And just remember, while you're there, sign up for our digital newsletter, The Bolo. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Profiling Evil for more true crime breakdowns and get expert insight into other cases. And if you like your true crime on the go, check out Profiling Evil's audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. Watch for Profiling Evil on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And again, if you like audio podcasts, make sure you're checking out Profiling Evil's audio podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. Hey, thanks for supporting Profiling Evil. We'll see you all soon at the next crime scene.